Hello, and welcome again to the Spirit of Watercolor, and welcome back to my studio. Today I wanted to talk about brushes, and I have a lot of tips and tricks again for you for the success of your painting with watercolors. Now, this is my brush container, and it's by American Journey. There's many like this out there, though. You can order from any place. And this is a way that I find is the best over the years to keep my brushes organized and easily accessible to use, organized, and so many good things. So I'm going to open it up for you. As you can see, it folds up nice, and it has Velcro to keep it together when it's closed up. And also, when you flip those Velcros in here, there's a connect inside, and then you can set this on the table, and everything's all organized and ready to go. The way I organize my brushes, and the ones I use the most, which is really all you need to start, as we've talked about before, is my flat brush 1-inch large and my 1-inch round, which has a point. You can find these at the watercolor supply stores. This is from Cheap Joe's. I believe it's called a Golden Fleece. It's a synthetic. It's not expensive. I've got a few smaller of those for crafting, but mostly I use these brushes to paint with for the big washes, the big transparent loose effects, and so forth. And what I'd like us to do today is to just play with a few of these brushes. And have you practice and play. Like I say, play some music, get into the flow, get to know what each of these brushes can do, okay? Now, the other brushes I have, there's a lot, but you don't need them all. But you can use these on specific times for specific things. So now this one is kind of a mop brush for me. I used to have a big moppy brush. You can buy it. It's called mop brush, which just wets big areas for you to do wet on wet. This will do the job too. It's just a thicker, soft, synthetic cotton flat brush. It's got an oval edge on it. I don't want it was for softness. I don't need the crisp edge on this one. And that one's just a recent, addition to my work, to my brushes. And then I have smaller round brushes with a point. I like the pointed rounds. Some people like these. This is my older one. It's just a regular round. And they make nice lines too, but sometimes you want that crisp pointed edge. So I've been more, when I do the detail work after I get some big washes on and let those dry, I go to the smaller ones here. I've got like a 6 and an 8 and possibly a size 10 in these pointed rounds. These are the Cheap Joe Golden Fleece like that. They're just smaller for more craft type things or lifting out some color, or if you put too much color you can lift some out with just clear water. And I also use this for watercolor ground, which is sort of like you cover up if you honestly have overworked something or have to get the color out and go back to the white of the paper. I use that. We could talk about that another time, but that's something I didn't learn about till recently and never have really used it. So, and then the rest of these are additions, and I also have fan brushes, which are additional. We can talk about that later. I keep all my most used brushes on this side of my container. You could use the other side, whatever works for you. This is just my way, but I just want to show you my way, and then you can look around and see what other people do. I think too many ideas can be overwhelming. So let's stick to, a good organized brush holder and the brushes. Now, I'm going to just talk about when you're practicing what these brushes can do. You take your nice watercolor student grade pad if you wish. You can get more expensive if you're okay with that. For practice, just practicing brush strokes and so forth, I prefer to use something that's not real pricey. It's still 140 pounds, good paper, and I just can practice upon practice. The other thing is when you're doing this, like here's some dab and drags we did in the other video, if you recall. You can also use the other side of the paper, right? You can use this all up, cover it all up, and then flip it over, because both sides of the paper work equally well on most watercolor paper, if not all. I've never had any that didn't. So Here's just another piece of this student grade paper where we did some flat wash and graduated wash, and I added in some land and some foreground and so forth, and it starts to become a landscape or a waterscape or whatever. So, you know, that's where I say these for practice are really terrific. Sometimes they actually turn out to be a painting. But, you know, the main thing right now is for us to take, and I'm going to try to do this from sitting right here instead of flipping around because I keep turning off my video. Here's my palette, my big old covered palette. I've already sprayed it wet, and I'm just going to get in there and we're going to think about how you can practice, you know, with your brushes and get to know what they do. I recommend this to all my students. I've even had classes where this is all we did, and sometimes people ended up going, it's becoming a painting, you know, and sometimes that'll happen. Okay, so I've got giant watercolor tubs because that's another thing that I don't remember to talk about enough, but the water gets dirty after a while and it doesn't, you know, clean your brushes as good and so forth. I actually use 2 of these. These are these giant, my husband buys cottage cheese in large quantity sizes, and you can buy big yogurt containers and so forth. Okay, so let's just see. We can do this sort of from here. I've not done this way before. I've done demos from the other side of the table. But just to think in an organized way, how can I get in there and start to play with my brushes? Pick some colors you love and see what they do, okay? I mean, a lot of this is about, you know, our connecting with things that give us joy and the beauty and colors and richness and so forth. And like I've said, load your palette, get it with a lot of paint. I go through my paint so fast, I'm always saying that, and it doesn't seem like I have enough paint on my palette. I have to, before I start every time at this table, I've got to load it back up. I took some quinacridone, I think it's quinacridone violet. It's a beautiful color, transparent. And I'm going to take my big flat brush, okay? And I'm just going to start to, you know, see like we did with our flat wash, you know, look at that nice. But I'm thinking about the types of lines and strokes and things that I can you know, create with this, okay? And then, you know, I said that this makes a crisp line. It does, okay? That could be a lot darker. Okay, and you'll start to see what your brush can do. Okay, let's bring in a lot more color, Linda. Okay, and then just, you know, start practicing, like I said, seeing what you get. There's more color. You know, look at those nice lines. What happens if I'm, you know, tapping on the brush? Tap, tap. Or maybe I'm winding it, swirling it, okay? And how thin, how thick, and can I go thin to thick to thin? Okay, lots of cool things you can do. It's still fresh. You can see transparently to the white of the paper. Isn't that nice? Okay, and then, you know, we'll take our round brush and let's do that. And our smaller brushes too. I'm not going to go on and on because I think you have the idea. But I think people need to see this and see what you can do. This has a nice point on it. Look how thick I can get the more I press down. That's the other thing, pressure. This is something I learned in like calligraphy, where, you know, the thicker, you know, you can go thick to thin to thick, and you can control by the pressure, okay? And the more detailed you want to get, I think people have said this, and I don't know if you've heard this, but, you know, if you take the brush and you hold it further down on the handle, you'll get a much more loose approach to painting. If you want to get more detailed, you can even do that with this big brush. And look, I can get some pretty thin lines, pretty tiny thin lines. Do I need all these other brushes? You know, it depends. The pointed rounds I've found, I can get a much more defined, you know, the smaller the brush, the more, you know, and the more pointed it is, the more defined, and you feel more control, you know, with that. That is finer than that, perhaps. So play with these too. Also, try all these brushes with our dab, drag, and lift. Look at that. Can you see that nice little, like, teardrop shape? It could be a petal. It could be so many things, right? And all our brushes can do that. So try that. Of course, our flat brush dab and drag. Now, we did a dab, drag, and lift video, and you know, you can try that. You know, I guess you could try it all these different directions. So this is the main thing I wanted to show you today, is just to play with the different ways these brushes can work for you. Get to know them, get comfortable with them. If you want to do, like, I just love using one color and I'm focusing only on the brush strokes, but you could play with the different colors here that you have and kind of see what they do as well. Some of them have granulation. We're going to talk about that in another video, right? And there's just so many things, but I don't want to go on and on. I'm trying to keep these videos short and to the point so you can just kind of take a particular topic and work with it, okay? And if you have questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section. And please like and subscribe, because that will help me to be motivated to keep on recording all these techniques. And this is technique here, brush technique. And we're going to keep moving and keep learning and keep playing and find the joy and the spirit of watercolor. Thanks again for joining me. Good to see you. Come back. Bye.